Generally, this is when I talk to couples, I say, I got bad news for you. You always marry somebody that's going to trigger for you every unhappiness that you ever had in your childhood. When I was being dishonest, my wife would get a neck pain. Literally.
We get a neck pain.
So after a while, she learned, I got this neck ache. Are you lying to me right now?
I would love to hear from you, your opinion on the connection between your mind, your body, and how that shapes your relationships.
Sure. Human beings are relational creatures. Important circuits of our brain are dedicated to relationships. And the brain develops an interaction with the environment, particularly in the early years, beginning already in uterus. So if we receive the right relationships, the right connections, the right understanding, the right acceptance, the right love in the beginning, then our template is for healthy, connected, mutually respectful, loving relationships. But if that template is a disturbed one, if our needs for being understood, being seen, being received, being cared for, being validated are not met, then those same brain circuits that modulate relationships now become troubled. And generally, this is when I talk to couples, I say, I got bad news for you. You always marry somebody that's going to trigger for you every unhappiness that you ever had in your childhood. So when we find somebody to be in a relationship with, it happens on two levels. One level is, I find them attractive, they're humorous, they're fun to be with, there's a commonality, so that there's the attractiveness. That's important. But underneath it, there's something else. Underneath it, there's a looking for the love that we never got in the first place. So, for example, why do so many women, specifically, who were abused in childhood, end up with abusive men? Which they do, repeatedly. You think, what's wrong with them? Well, there's nothing wrong with them. What's wrong is, whose love did they most want when they were kids? Precisely that abusive person. So unconsciously, they'll be drawn towards men who've got that abusive potential. Because that's where they're looking for love. Now, this is generally true. So my wife and I have been married 55 years now. And yes, we find each other attractive and fun, and we had a lot to talk about. But on a deep level, I was compensating for the love I didn't get as a child the way I needed it, and so was she. In other words, we married our parents' dysfunctions. And then the relationship becomes either destroyed by that, or you grow mutually. So relationships very much a matter of growing up together, if that can happen. But I guarantee you, when you marry somebody, you're gonna find both your dreams and your worst nightmare.
That's profound, that we're all seeking, subconsciously, we're seeking our parents' dysfunction.
Yeah, because that's where we wanted the love. So we're still looking for the love. Now, that's wired into our brains, and it's wired into our bodies. And very often when I speak to people and they're upset about their relationship, and I say, well, what's in your body? And they'll say, well, there's tension, there's, my heart's beating fast, my throat is tight. I say, how familiar is that feeling? Goes way back to childhood.
Wow. So in terms of our unhealthy, should I say, when we have those unhealthy relationships, how does that then manifest itself physically? So whether that be an unhealthy childhood relationship, or even as an adult, if we're in a marriage or we're dating someone and it's unhealthy and we know it is, how does that manifest itself physically?
Well, it'll manifest itself in physical states, such as I described, tension in the body, upsets of the intestines. See, people are relational creatures, and we always think of ourselves as sort of discrete individuals. But, like in my marriage, if I can be self-disclosing here, when I was being dishonest, my wife would get a neck pain. Literally.
We get a neck pain.
So after a while, she learned, I got this neck ache. Are you lying to me right now? You know?
Yeah.
And I was, you know, or intestinal upset. We tend to think of it as, oh, this problem with the individual's intestinal tract. But the intestinal tract is very responsive to relationship, because there's a big nerve called the vagus nerve. They call it the wandering nerve. It's the largest autonomic nerve in the body, and it connects the organs to the brain. And when the brain picks up a hint of disturbance, the vagus will act up, and now you're going to have stomach aches and diarrhea and or constipation even, and so on, because there's something disturbed in the relationship. The whole point is we're wired together as human beings, and so that'll manifest through our nervous system. So it shows up in the body. Children are very much creatures of relation, and they're very dependent on the parents' emotional states. So if you want to know if a couple is having tensions, there's two things you can do. You can ask the mother and the father, or you can measure the child's stress hormone levels. And the child's stress hormone levels will be a perfect readout of the parents' state of relationship.
Wow. So it sounds like what you're saying is that we need to be in touch with how our body is reacting.
Yeah.
In all of these moments with our partner.
We need to be aware.
We need to be aware.
And the more body awareness we have, and realizing that our bodies are responsive to the environment, the more of a clear map we have to our relationship.
Okay.
The Western medicine that I'm trained in tends to separate the mind from the body. People, women might go to, or men for that matter, might go to a physician with certain physical symptoms, and the doctors will look for the source only within the body itself. Whereas very often the source is interactional and relational.
Now, correct me on this.
Yeah.
Because I've always said who we choose as our partner is one of the most important decisions of our life.
It's one of the most important decisions, and it's in many ways it's also one of the least conscious decisions. Because the conscious reasons that you have may be valid, but there's so much more to it that is unconscious.
Yes.
And then, in any successful relationship, the task of the relationship really is to make that unconscious conscious. Because what we all want is freedom. But there's no freedom without awareness. So if I'm unaware of all these things that are motivating me, how can I talk about being free?
You do believe that's true then? Who we choose as a partner is one of the most important decisions of our life.
Well, it's the most important decision we ever make, you know, and again, it's the one that we're very often the least conscious of all the factors that go into it.
Yes.